everyone, Ariel Adams here with Superlative Podcast. Please listen to aBlogtoWatch's other podcasts, aBlogtoWatch Weekly, where we talk about the latest watch news and reviews. Today on Superlative, my guest is Thomas Baillod. He is the founder of Baillod Watches, which is spelled with a couple of ones in the middle, but We'll get to that. Thomas, welcome back to the show. You were, I think, one of the first people to come on Superlative when I launched this program several years ago.
Correct. Hi, Ariel. Very, very big pleasure for me to be back on Superlative. And thanks to the public for joining again for this next session.
So last week, we sort of tried to record, and it was kind of this amusing comedy. It's good that we didn't actually use that content because I discussed it with our podcast editor, and he was going to commit violence upon me if I was going to make him record that. So, but you were doing something interesting, and you were, I'm going to say it in an unglamorous way to be funny, you were taking a fancy walk.
In fact, I'm always over positive. This is how usually startuppers should be. So I pretended that I could do my walk and have my podcast at the same time. Now, this walk is very special. I don't know if you know it in the States, though I met a lot of people from the US doing it. It's called Camino de Compostela. It's in north of Spain. You have one city called Santiago de Compostela, where pilgrims, in the past it was for religion purpose, now it's more meditative or introspection. That's the way I did it. Would walk, so you can walk for a month. These are the long ways. I did it for a week, and in the week you already have a lot of lessons. And I suggested that we could do it by walking, remembering that the first time you and I made a podcast, you were the one walking. At times that are always incredible for me because it was in the middle of the night in California. You were somewhere in a mountain and you handled it better than I did. So last week was a crash test that crashed. It didn't work. We had to admit that I spoiled your night. And I'm very sorry about this, but it was great because we could exchange on other topics than just watches. Because, ultimately it's not all about watches. It's about, spirituality and things that moves you on and make you do the things you do.
Now, I'm someone who also likes to walk. As you said, I like to hike a lot. Why couldn't you walk closer to where you live?
That's the first question I asked myself. Well, I do a lot of hiking here. I love being in the nature. It's very inspiring and relaxing to me. Now, that special walk is something different because you don't have that possibility of saying, I'm back home. I mean, you're there. It's 1,000 kilometers away from here, north of Spain. Now, it's as well something that has its spiritual dimension in itself because you have that goal reaching Santiago de Compostela. And I didn't perceive it when I left, but on the way, you have a lot of signs. You don't have to look at your phone. You don't need to. Just by walking, you need to be attentive and see the little signs, the arrows that would guide you. And I think reaching Compostelle is, at least it was on my bucket list, or it's something that one day you should be doing. And that specific destination comes with some more emotions than just walking around your home. And what's very funny is that you understand that first you need to have a destination, but that's when you go to Compostela as well as in life, you need to know, what is the destination. You should look at the signs while walking, and that's exactly the same in your life. But there is one thing I learned. Walking, you can always walk. The problem is the bag you carry. And we tend as human beings to keep things with us. Like, you put a lot of things while you walk, you accumulate a lot of stuff that you put on your back. But the problem is not the walk.
We call it baggage in America. You accumulate baggage.
The baggage, yes. So that baggage is the problem. And it's exactly the same in your life. Don't over carry things that you should not. And probably it came at the right moment for me because I'm carrying a lot of stuff. And it was good to think that maybe I don't need, there are many stuff that you don't need. And, keep walking, being a bit lighter is better. Among the walk, you will find a lot of people. Some will just be passing by. Some will walk alongside you. choose the one that pick up, that walk exactly the same speed as you. Let them go if they want to go. That's as well in life. And of course, find the right shoes for your foot. The one that looks fun are fine for a few kilometers. But if you want to go for hundreds of kilometers like I did, I don't know how many miles that is, but it's a lot of miles. You should have the right thing on your.
So you got into gear. It's all about gear, the right tools.
It's the tools, and in the end, no, it's the motivation. Because many times you say, why am I doing this? But keep walking. Why do you think keep walking?
Because you're testing out shoes and backpacks. That's why.
Yeah, I like this practical stuff, but it was spiritually very interesting to do it, and I think I'm less and less in the operational now. In my company, we'll be speaking about it. As things are growing, we're almost reaching now 20 people. The group, because it's not a brand anymore, it's a group now, it's a holding. And my role now is not to be in the operative. It's to hire people much smarter than me, that know things best than me in their field, and make sure that everybody walks in the same, direction, that I keep motivating and allowing them to be the best they can. This is my role now. And, that's why it's good to take some distance.
Let's step back a little bit. When I had you on the show, gosh, I mean, it was at least 5 years ago.
The first time was even more. I think it was right when I launched my brand.
Yeah. So when did the brand launch?
It's going to be 7 years in October.
Okay. So it was like basically right before the pandemic?
Yeah.
That's right.
A few weeks before the pandemic.
And I had you on the show and we talked about the formation, some of your hopes. And I remember discussing the interesting fact that the brand was really supposed to be a proof of concept to help you push this idea of selling in a new way with communities. You came up with this term affluendor, which I still think is amusing and cute.
The WeCommerce as well was something I created.
Yeah,
and probably phygital. I was one of the very first to use this word in 2016 in the watch industry. Nobody was speaking about phygital. Yeah.
You had these ideas about new and modern ways of selling, reaching consumers, and in order to test those ideas, you basically had to come up with a brand. You're like, no other brand will follow this lead unless I show them it can be done, which again totally makes sense. Fast forward to today. I don't really know what's going on with some of those concepts, but the brand is more than just a proof of concept for this other idea. And now the brand, as you said, is bigger. You're 20 people. You're a bunch of models into it. It's taking up all of your time.
It's basically
you're a brand
as well
man
integrated. Now. So we bought BCP Tourbillon, the company who makes tourbillon for us, as well as many other brands.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Of course.
Yeah. So this is how we got to 20 people. Look, it started as many things by lucky or happy mistake, because my goal was not to create a brand at all. I was just stubborn in proving that my concept, a new business model. I'm an economist by I was studying this at university. And I was really stubborn in proving that my new concept in rethinking not the watch, but the way we sell it had to be updated, because everything now has been upgraded with digital. Everything is circular, but the good old distribution, the way we sell the product, is century, if not thousands of years old. And I pretended that we had as well to renew our thinking. And as we say, it's not about inventing the taxi. It's about Uber. It's not about the hotel. It's about Airbnb. So it's about rethinking the ecosystem. And this is what I wanted to do. I approached many brands with that business model that, by the way, I was teaching in many universities. And everybody said, interesting, but it's not possible, can never work, blah, 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 blah. It's a very conservative industry, for good sake, of course. And after a year trying and approaching companies, I politely told to myself, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. So this is how that concept started. Because for a year, I didn't call it a brand, I called it a concept. And yes, The concept has proven to be right. It went out of my hand for good sake. It became a brand in itself, and I'm just assuming what I've created. And at a certain point, I said, look, if I did this, if I created this brand, so let's give it the maximum chances and let's make it seriously. I'm a child from the watch industry. I'm speaking here from Neuchâtel. You might not know this town. It's a town, but it's as well a state. The state of Neuchâtel hosts as well the city of La Chaux-de-Fonds, where I come from, where I grew up. And La Chaux-de-Fonds is, unfortunately, the unknown city where most of the parts of most of the big brands you know are made, are produced. So you're here right in the heart of the Watch Valley. Like if you speak about wines, it's Napa in California, period. If you're from Napa, you grow up there, you have a lot of contacts in people doing wines. And this is exactly what I do here by doing watches. So I don't know any other things than doing the best and most perfect, accurate watches in the world because I was born in a watch here in the Watch Valley. So this is exactly now what I'm doing.
You definitely have the heritage in your family and you're living in the right place. So that obviously has a huge contributing factor. But I want to go back to
heritage, by the way, is an interesting thing we might speak about.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to just at least talk about the way you sell watches, because you entered all this with some very interesting ideas about how to shake up how to sell watches. I don't know all the ways you sell watches these days, but it appears that a lot of the ways you sell are some of the standard 1,000-year-old ways. Yes, you sell online and stuff like that. But what did you find once you went into practice about the need for your new concepts as well as the viability of them?
Well, my concept was basically based on one fact, very easy, is that the least you buy when you buy a watch, I should not say it, I'll make some more enemies, but the least you pay for is the watch. It's probably 15% of the price you pay is the watch in itself. You know, these metal things you have on your wrist. The rest is just piling up margins. So unfortunately, when you buy a watch, the more you pay for is the commodity, how you buy the watch. It's not the product in itself. And this is what I wanted to change. My purpose was to put the most value, the most watch possible on the wrist and not just a lot of margins hanging on your wrist. And the idea started with something very old and common is the word to mouth. We believe in the people sharing their best experience. And this is true. And in your first circle, you will believe people that you know have tested something. Many times people then would say, yeah, but this is like MLM, multi-level, or this is like a Ponzi things and pyramid games. If people start to recommend, it's not at all about this. And my business model is just based on someone speaking about her or his experience. MLM, it means when you have various layers and you have advantage on any other layers. It's absolutely not the case for what I've created. It's just based on people, if they want, they can freely express what they like and they can recommend my products. So this is how I started, and this is why I call it the WeCommerce, which is the evolution of e-commerce, which is itself the evolution of commerce. WeCommerce is us, is the community. But what happens, Ariel, when you spread the word, that's called marketing, and when you sell, that's called distribution. So when you know that possibly 60, 70, 80% of the price you pay is about spreading the word and selling in itself, finding a way to make it through the customers would eliminate those costs. And what I did, let's see what the other have to say about this. I passed on that benefit to the end consumer, making sure that he or she would pay the best possible price for the product and not putting it in my pocket. And this is why.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry? No, this is how I started with that experience, saying, how can I minimize the end consumer cost or what the customer pays without, of course, at all touching about the quality or making any compromise on quality. It's exactly the same quality and product you would find in any other brands. We use the same suppliers, we use the same movements, it's same, but it's just the calculation is made differently so that you get the maximum value on your wrist. And this is how it started. Now, you ask about the limitation of that model. funnily, some people said, look, I don't want to be recommended by anyone. I just want to buy your product. Fine. You know what? Buy it online. This is my e-com website. You can buy it. So from WeCommerce, I started to handle as well the traditional e-commerce. So you can just go on my website and buy. That's fine. But then we even had to adjust. And as I'm speaking to you, part of my team is flying to Vegas because there is Couture coming, which is a B2B fair.
I'll be there.
You would ask, you'll be there, you meet my team. And you ask, so why, if you were getting away from retail, why do you meet retailers? And I would say first that I worked 20 years with retailers and distributors, so it's my family. So there's nothing I want to do against them. And why am I considering being back in the stores? It's because our biggest advantage became our biggest disadvantage. We have so incredible prices that in fact people don't believe us. And Ariel, funnily, it's a problem because many times if I would have much higher prices, then people would not question my product and think that because of this price, it's less quality, especially for the Tourbillon. We have risen a bit the prices from the introduction prices that we had. That was as well, we sponsored the product to make sure that it was as accessible as possible. We're speaking about $6,000 at that time, or a 100%, and I'm straight in my shoes, as we say in French, 100% Swiss-made tourbillon with amazing properties. And at that price, people were raising so many questions. It's Chinese, it's not possible, etc., etc. So we had, in fact, to have places where the people could come close to the product, judge the quality by themselves, and somehow use the how do you call it? The due diligence, or let's say the fact that we are recommended by key retailers who made their job in questioning, in asking, in reading the blogs, in speaking to you and saying, Ariel, do you think this guy is serious? Is it true that it's Swiss made? Your answer would be yes, because you came here, you saw the product. So when you go to a big retailers, you know that the brand listed in that shop, if they are there, it's because it means what it means. And this is how we overcame that paradox, which is called the Veblen dilemma, is that whenever something is accessible, people think it's of less quality. And whenever it's very expensive, people would straight away think, oh, that must be the best quality. This is the bottle of wine in a restaurant that costs $200 instead of the other one costing maybe 35. You would think directly that the $200 bottle of wine is much better than the other one, but you haven't tasted it. It's just because the price might influence your perception.
But there's a missing element there that I think is important to say. I agree that the general consumer sees a higher price and makes a calculation that that product is probably better. But that doesn't mean they're any more likely to buy it. So it's not enough to get them to be impressed by it. You also want them to desire it and to be able to afford it and to say, I choose this over something else at this price point. So if it's more affordable, that's the challenge. They're willing to get it if you can convince them it's as good as it is. And that goes back to your regional thesis, which is the peer recommendation or validation is cheaper and more effective, especially from a cost perspective, than traditional marketing.
Well, first, I'm not 100%, I don't 100% agree with you. Sometimes the price in itself is an argument for the people to show, you cannot go into a bar with your Ferrari, but if you go with a very expensive watch, people will link it to your status. So sometimes the price speaks for itself regardless.
But what I'm saying is, if you put a high price, you are then competing with the known brands at that price. So I'm saying is Ferrari can't just be expensive. It has to have a lot of other things going for it that make people want it.
And heritage, etc. So definitely, and if we would be raising prices, then you need to have, we do have 251 year of history in my of the Baillod doing watches in the state of Neuchâtel. That goes back to 1775, my ancestors. But yet nobody knows it. And of course, when you compare to the big ones that have that trajectory, that spend years in building, and I said it without most respect, of course, this brand brings something more because they have the trajectory. I don't have the trajectory, so I have to be humble about it and thank these big brands for opening the path. Definitely, they allow me to be coming and selling products. Now, at the price of what you would pay for a beautiful three-hand in these brands, you would have 100% Swiss-made tourbillon in my brand. So yes, some people there start to compare and start to think for that price. And in my brand, most of the time for the price we have the products, you don't find equivalents in other brands. You would find, but with lower features. Now, it's not just about features, it's about as well how you're perceived with a product. And this is called marketing. And if marketing is, is taught at the university, it's because it's a science that works.
Let's talk about the Tourbillon. A few years ago, you came out with your first Tourbillon. I don't remember exactly what the price was at the time, but it was the cheapest, not just Swiss-made, because Swiss-made doesn't actually mean all Swiss-made, but as you qualify, really Swiss-made tourbillon on the market.
Everything down here, yes. Every part in that watch was down here.
What made you want to come out with a tourbillon? Obviously, it's just a very elite complication, but talk about this idea of coming out with a Swiss-made one at the time, and I think maybe still to now or close to it, the cheapest price on the market. What did that mean to you?
I followed a very simple logic about demonstration of my business concept, which enables to bring incredible value at incredible price. Now, I started and applied that logic at very entry price, low level at the beginning, chapter 1, 2, 3. Chapter 3 was a Swiss made at $500-600 US with a beautiful skeleton. You would not get anything close to that, even at double the price. But yet people said, okay, so your model works, but it does only work with, cheap or affordable prices. It will never work with high-end horology. So this is where, of course, they throw like a defy to me, and I love it. And I say, okay, so you're saying that my business model doesn't apply to very high-end timepieces. Okay, so what is a very high-end timepieces? The king on the chess game is the tourbillon. So I said, I'm going to do a tourbillon, but not just one tourbillon. I mean, when we're speaking about a tourbillon, it's a very original, beautiful design. It's 120 hours power reserve on one single barrel. It's 5,000 G shock resistant. It's a precision that is amazing because this one is chronometer certified. So
time lab.
My idea was to come with something exceptional, 100% done here, and show that even if I go to high-end horology, I can come at unbelievable prices. And the higher I will go in terms of sophistication of movements, the more you will fill the gap with the corresponding brand offering the same type of products. Because the delta is even higher. So this is what made me come to the tourbillon.
What can you tell me about the people that have bought the watch so far? You've come out with a few versions of it, but what do you see as being some of the common factors in the customers that buy the Baillod tourbillons?
Well, we have quite a few. I would say we have sold over 1,500 tourbillons. So
wow,
that
congratulations.
made Baillod one of the biggest Swiss exporter or reseller of Swiss-made tourbillon in the world, which is not a small thing. Look, we have many different public from many different age. We have people in their 20s that, always dream of having a tourbillon. We have as well this, how do you call it, level up, the people that for that price would never think they could achieve buying a tourbillon, and they finally can add this to their collection. So we have a lot of collectors that once wanted to get the Holy Grail, which is a tourbillon, and finally could reach it. But we have as well a lot of people that have the most prestigious brand in their collection that have 60, 70, 100 watches in their collection that wanted to add it because exactly the same reason as one of the main museum here in Le Locle was willing to buy our tourbillon to have it in their collection, because it's a historical thing, because it showed a turning point on the tourbillon itself at this price, at this level of quality, had a meaning in itself in the history of watchmaking. It's a turning point, and many people saw this timepiece as a turning point. Now, 100% of the people that has bought that tourbillon have one thing in common, is that they loved the design and the skeleton and the final quality. Because if you don't like my watch, you can send it back, and I think out of 1,500, maybe one person send it back. So it means that as well that everybody who purchased it appreciate the level of quality. But we have from big collectors to people starting their collection, we have a lot of different public in 1,500 people, and many people in the US, by the way. I have one guy in California that has, I think, all of our model. I think he has, his museum will be better as our museum here.
What, if any, was some of the reaction from some of the fellow Swiss brands? We obviously know that Chinese tourbillons at a pretty low price have been on the market for a while. In the last couple of years, have been pretty good, but they don't have the same prestige as Swiss made. There are a lot of companies not far from you that sell tourbillons at in the many tens of thousands, if not in the hundreds of thousands. Was there any moment where they went to you and say, yeah, that's cool, but you're also making it difficult for us to explain why our tourbillons cost what they do? Did you ever have any discussions like that?
I had all kind of discussions, to be honest. First, a few of these companies selling even at 100,000 buy the same tourbillon, or I should say now they buy it from us because we own BCP. And I'm gladly selling to the industry, by the way. I had a lot of backfire at the beginning, saying that I was lying. We had investigations. Some journalists even went to China to find evidences that I was lying because they were saying it was not possible. And finally, from the people who should have said congrats, there was a lot of backfire of brands saying, somehow you're projecting or you're misusing that holy grail, because people that thought it was something unreachable now can reach it. So it somehow lowered the perception of a tourbillon. I understand it. And maybe the biggest issue I had was when I visited top retailers that list, I will not name brands, but think, the big four of big brands,
right,
that have what we use in our tourbillon is Atocalpa. You find this in the best brands in the world. And some retailers said, look, why should I take your $8,000 or $10,000 tourbillon when I have the same quality in a 100,000 tourbillon, where I make 50% margin? So I make more or less $40,000-$50,000 profit. Why should I bring yours? And if I sell yours, I will make maybe 10 times less profit. And second, either I should be speaking bad about your brand to disqualify your brand so that I can reassure them that the big brands selling at that price are worth that price, or I might lose a sales, which will bring me 10 times more profit. So yeah, it's potentially a big issue. This is why we open very carefully in retail, because it's not for everyone. And by the way, you were mentioning the name, which every time we come up, and I'm sure here you will have a lot of comments about people sometimes in the US being very nasty about the brand name, which has its own logic. And I first spent a lot of time explaining. And now my explanation is very simple. If you know, you know. Like, how should you pronounce it? If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. And it's exactly the same about my brand. If you don't know, don't worry, don't know. You have a lot of brands, hundreds of brands out there that I'm happy to sell you products. I'm producing 3,000 watches per year. So thanks God, not everybody wants my brand. If you don't know my brand, fine, no problem. But if you know the quality, you spend enough time understanding what it is, where it comes from, then you know. And then you know how to pronounce it.
So I'm waiting for the moment that you come out with a watch that has your name on it, but without the ones. I'm not saying that it'll be everyone, but I there'll be a moment of time when it happens.
Well, we came very close to it with this one because it has my name on it, Baillod, Heritage Family, but this one still has the 1 and the 0, or I don't know if it's O. Yeah, it's something that we're thinking. Shall I compromise and change my name to please the customers? But it's like the design. Then you end up always pleasing everyone, and then it stays less if you always do what people expect you to do. Some people might like it. It's okay. I do respect it. Some people don't understand the logic behind that logo. It's okay. It's not for everyone, and thanks God, it's not for everyone.
Part of the charm of this hobby is how much people talk about it. It's sometimes easy to get a little bit perturbed if you're the subject of the conversation. But I think it's really important that things like logos are discussed as much as they are. It's not just price and style, but the minor details of these watches are the subject of countless conversation, debate that ultimately helps our hobby. And I feel like you kind of go about it in a sort of nice, relaxed way. If you don't understand, that's fine. Some brands are very perturbed if someone doesn't understand. But for me, it's all fuel for the conversation. And the more conversations that exist, I ultimately think that means more watches are going to be purchased.
I remember 20, 30 years ago, the marketing campaign from Benetton were very controversial. And in the end, everybody's speaking about it. So you might I should maybe see it as positive, because whether people like it or not, they would speak about it, and then ultimately it's positive. Honestly, I didn't do it at all on that purpose. I'm able to explain the whole watch industry mechanics and how the business model of the watch industry in 1 hour just by explaining my logo. So that logo has a very deep meaning. But again, if people want to spend times about speaking about the logo, it's fine. Maybe I'll make some enemies here, but I have one sentence that I love. When the wise man points at the stars, the fool look at the finger. So it's okay. Speak about my finger. But maybe it should be better. It should be better to understand what it's pointing to. But again, if your conversation is about my finger, here it is. Don't worry. Speak about my finger.
I guess for me, because I know you, and when I knew you and your name, of course, before I saw the brand name, so I understood it right away. I knew your background. I knew kind of what you're into. I never had this question, but now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I can see how a lot of people who are freshly approaching this logo are like, wait a minute, I'm unclear. So I can see that.
Well, and okay, let's not get into politics, but many people say, it looks like Prince or Elon Musk or stuff that you wouldn't understand with 1 and 0, like a cheap Chinese thing, etc., etc.
Oh,
okay. I do understand. It's unconventional. When you say it, I do accept and understand that somehow it looks a bit weird, like BA111OD. It does. But then there is as well a lot about 3-1. There's a lot to do. It's my last name, Baillod in the end.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, I think the look when it's written correctly is somehow fine. When you put it on blogs, on forum, and it's BA111 written not in capital letters, it does look very strange. I do understand. And when it comes to prestigious watches, it somehow hurts a bit the eyes to see this logo, which is unconventional. Now, if you take Bulgari, the U is Bulgari, is written as well like a V, like I did reversed. So it's about being a bit strange. But again, for me, there is a very deep meaning and logic behind that logo. And I'm not ready to compromise on this. Like me how I am. Or don't like me, it's fine.
it goes to show that you not only can't please everyone, but maybe you shouldn't. You know, the most successful watches, I think, are ones that have real lovers and real haters. And I noticed that when you try to please everyone, you kind of end up pleasing no one. And
yes, so you become flat.
You offend no one, but you also excite no one. And I think that that's really important because, again, I haven't put out a lot of designs myself, but when someone doesn't like it, it doesn't feel great. But you almost have to have the discipline of taking their opinion, not necessarily dismissing it, but saying, that's good to know that that type of person doesn't like it. I'll be aware of that. But there's other people out there whose opinions will feel differently. And I think that's what's important. It's look for polarization as opposed to sort of crowd pleasing. You know, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know, I always say passion before profit. So if it should be just about profit, then you try to be as largely as accepted as possible. When it comes to passion, sometimes you don't know why you love someone, but maybe it's because that person is weird. So passion before profit, yes. And it's not a flat thing. You know, behind that brand are a lot of convictions. I don't know if this is the right word in English. I mean, a lot of belief, a lot of values. Here, myself and the team, we are children from the Watch Valley. We don't do things as we should be doing. And by the way, you know, launching a watch brand that nobody can pronounce and nobody can purchase was a marketing and a commercial suicide. So I did it completely wrong from the beginning, and probably this is why it worked. So sometimes it's good not to make things how people expect you to do.
Movado introduces the Heritage Kingmatic, a sleek timepiece that brings back the golden age of 20th century mechanical wristwatches when design and distinction were everything. The original Kingmatic was debuted in 1952 as a self-winding dress watch that remained in the Movado catalog for nearly 3 decades. The modern Heritage Kingmatic is directly inspired by a cushion-shaped Kingmatic design from 1962. Movado offers multiple cosmetic styles of the Heritage Kingmatic, each with a 35mm wide steel case, legible dial with beautiful Dauphine-style hands, and a Swiss-made automatic movement assembled at the company's manufacture in La Chaux-de-Fonds. Movado invites you to discover the Heritage Timepiece collection today as the company celebrates both the 70th anniversary of the original Kingmatic as well as the 145th anniversary of the historic Movado brand. Discover your next timepiece at movado.com. Let's talk about design in general. And I get curious about this. You see a brand coming out with a new design. You have to come out with new watches on, you know, somewhat of a regular basis. I never quite understand how you decide this is the one we're making. Sometimes people can't decide. They come out with 10 versions of the same thing, slightly different colors. What is your process behind deciding what to make next? And how do you finally decide on what it is that you're actually going to present?
I have very good examples here. I think what you see here, this is a 100% original design that came out of the brilliant mind of my designer Liliane Murenzi. If you want, then I can take my iPad, walk around because she's here in office somewhere. And this is exactly what was in her and my mind as a design. Now, when it comes to this one is a neo-vintage watch. There has been probably hundreds of millions, if not billions, spent from brands to make you like this type of neo-vintage watches. So we politely surf the wave, which is very trendy now, of these type of watches. And it's exactly the same about this one. This is a typical Gérald Jontin inspired watch. You have it in many, many brands. People would say AP, other would say Gérard Perregaux, other would say DeFi Zenith, other would say PRX, etc. According to, but this is us reinterpreting something that is very commonly liked. So we did here get inspired by a classic, But yet this one is very interesting. We just launched it. And by the way, huge success in the US. This one, we have spent more than 1 year finalizing the details on the dial on where we would put the curves, where we would put the everything, the anglage you can see on the watch. We have spent 1 year saying, no, this is not good enough. We have to redo it. And this shows as well one thing is that we're not just shooting products out there. We take the time it needs to make it perfect. And that's very important. Make it the perfect product with the know-how, because design is in-house here. We monitor producing. We don't produce the parts here, but we buy from the best suppliers and we assemble everything by hand here in the atelier. You want to see the atelier? I can bring you in 2 seconds.
Sure, if you want to. I don't. People who are listening won't be able to necessarily know what you're doing, but you're walking in your office. You're proudly taking.
I'm just opening the door. I didn't pull them anything. And here you have one watchmaker. The other is what time is it? Yeah, he's gone already because they come at 6 a.m. So this is the atelier where we do produce the watches. You have 3 people, so you can see it has been used. And here you have one watchmaker assembling all the watches. So this is here Reginald. This is Baptiste, and here you have Rebecca, his daughter and father, and they are assembling 100% of the watches here by hand. So this is just the next door. And the designer is in the other office now making sure that the next collections are finalized. So, this hasn't been foreseen, but you have an authentic insight of how we do produce the watches. So the whole knowledge is here. How to, the design, the production, the assembling, and we even now own in La Chaux-de-Fonds the movement, the core of the watch. So we do produce our own tourbillon. So everything is in-house. And why did I do it? Because I could very simply do Ariel, hire external designer, have someone producing the watches for me, stock, warehousing, and shipping without even seeing the watches. This is called a marketing brand. And you have a lot out here. But I believe that if you respect your product and if you respect your customers, you cannot be wrong. So this is for me, respecting my products because I make them here, and respecting your customers, you watching this podcast now, because we here can say, and I stand in my shoes, we make the best possible Swiss-made watches here from the Watch Valley.
Now, your values are commendable, and I think you execute it very well. You are the type of person that should be running this because you definitely think about the consumer. And that's one of the things I think I want to repeat that's positive about your leadership is you genuinely care about the consumer experience.
It's the boss. I mean, who is paying my salary? Respect your boss.
I think I have to say it because while maybe it's not thought of that way, I think there's a real contempt for the consumer with some of the brands that are within driving distance of where you live. There's a real hatred of the idea that they want a strong value proposition. They don't like that they want to be treated well. There's this desire to kind of, some brands honestly love abusing rich people. I feel like that's exciting for them.
Well,
you know what I mean?
By the way, I got my lesson in Miami. And then I remember I have to explain you how
in Miami?
our watches. Yeah, my lesson was in Miami. I was in the Caribbean backpacking, and I ended up in Miami before flying back to Switzerland. And I was with my cousin who's living, by the way, in Los Angeles, but we happened to be both in Miami, and we were hanging out with his friends that are very wealthy people, and their main activity was being rejected in front of the clubs until the point they would, throw thousands of US dollars to get in the VIP club with a bottle of champagne. And the more these big clubs, I made all the big clubs in Miami. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed seeing how they would, raise the pressure, saying, no, you cannot get in, sir. No. And sometimes the club was empty, but being rejected for the people who have no limit, it's like something they like. I say it respectfully, and you have any kind of people in this world, but sometimes when you can do anything, The thing that you cannot do is the thing you want to do. This is, what I see with my kids that are young, but sometimes it continues. So there is this thing many times in the watch industry where they will treat you bad. They will tell you that you cannot, etc. And the more you tell them no, the more they want. That's a game between, wealthy and wealthy. Good for them. And thanks to them, because they represent these 6 or 10% of the population that can buy hundred thousands of US priced watches, make that industry move forward. Thank you. And from the heart of my heart, thank you for making that type of industry click. But
you agree that's only a minority of companies can do that, and only a minority of consumers will put up with that for any amount of time.
Yeah, it's been evaluated that the industry works because of approximately 100,000 US, 100,000 people, very, very wealthy people that buy several 100,000 US watches per year. And this is what makes that industry work. It's 100,000 people. And thank you for them to create that excitement and inspire as well the other people, because those beautiful watches, they are probably worth that price. And they make everybody dream. And when you spend 1,000 US dollar, it's a lot of money, but it's because you have this understanding of beautiful Swiss-made watches that are driven by these big brands. Now, my quest is that 1,000 US dollar is a lot of money for a lot of people. I come from La Chaux-de-Fonds. It's a proletarian city. We are the guys that work, that produce the things, not just the guy that speak and drink champagne. So I want to do watches, and my quest is to respect these type of people. Not yet I want to respect everyone, but I'm speaking to those people that value 1,000 US dollar. It's already a lot of money.
I guess the reason I'm talking about this is I had a conversation with someone, and I was actually trying to explain your brand to them. And this is someone that didn't know a lot about watches, and I realized that it's actually quite difficult. Like, it's funny because you said sort of, if you know, you know. In a sense, I actually agree, even though I'm not really a huge fan of that statement. You have to understand the watch industry from a contextual basis, understand the importance of Le Chaux de Fonds, of course, the region of Neuchâtel, and then you discover Baillod. And then you see your commentary on it, how you play with it, how you play with some of the archetypes, how you do things a little bit differently. And then it starts to make sense. But it's only valuable through the comparison to what you know, but you have to have this initial education first. And you're probably going to agree that your brand is probably not going to be the one that educates these people to begin with. It might be a more mainstream brand. It might be one of those brands that's priced too high. But if they stick with it enough and they find you, then they're like, I like this guy's character. I understand enough about what he's trying to do to get it. But if they just had a conversation with you and you had to inform them all about watchmaking from this region of Switzerland, that would be difficult to do in one conversation.
It requires, it's true. It's not the mainstream thing that you say, I just like it. It requires people to spend some time trying to understand. Yet our watches are beautiful and the price is amazing. Probably one of the best in the industry, if not the best. So it is some kind of easy to like. But if you want to understand a bit more about what we do and why we do it, yes, it requires explanation. It takes more time. But I've spent a lot of time in my youth in Rome. My parents had a house there. And you have a lot of people walking in the center of Rome that just see some block of stones piled up. And they just think, oh, this is a stone. This is the Colosseum. And it has 2,000 years of history. But if you don't know history, if you don't spend some time understanding history, you just see some blocks of stones piled up. It's okay, fine. But this is the Colosseum. Spend some time understanding why this is beautiful.
Let's talk about your acquisition of BCP, this company that produces tourbillons. So
yes.
You'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but you initially began working with them as a client. You were buying their tourbillons. The founder of that company, I believe, is Olivier Maury.
Correct.
And
A brilliant genius guy.
And now you purchased it not just to have tourbillons for your own brand, but to sell to others that you want to sell to. I guess my first question...
To continue and sell, yes. Because they already sell to other brands.
My question is, what is it that you saw in Mr. Mori? Because I understand it's not just the company much of the time. It's the person running it. They have to be someone who's going to be a true partner. What was it about him that made you feel safe about this, really big business arrangement?
First, yes, for us, it's a big thing to swallow or to acquire because BCP is quite expensive. It's not cheap. And beside the fact that I wanted to secure my approvisionnement, procurement and purchase, I first believe in one thing, in the common vision Olivier and I have in what type of watchmaking we like. First, when we are together, we're like two little kids. They know they can play a lot of tricks and have a lot of fun and that enjoy it. So that's for me the main thing. It should be fun. And and Olivier has applied to industrial thinking exactly the same logic I applied to commercialization, meaning optimize the process in order to get the best possible way to do things you do. And Olivier is a genius in the sense that his background is, he has two backgrounds. He first worked at Renaud Papy, so one of the most prestigious, movement maker that equipped. This is of course Audemars Piguet.
Oh yeah.
So he was there creating the best movements
and most
in the
of
world.
Richard Mille's complicated watches.
Exactly. So he actually was the first person to work on the Richard Mille movement. Olivier, he was the first one creating it, and then he went to Selita. So he knew how to make it times 1 million. So he has that very high-end knowledge multiplied by quantities. And when it comes to quantity, sometimes, it's better because if you have 10% rejection in a movement extremely complicated, this is still acceptable. But when it comes to 1 million movements, you cannot throw to trash or you cannot trash 100,000 movements. So you have to apply the best industrial precision. So Olivier has these two knowledges, and this is very unique, I must say. So he was able to reinterpret the way you would create a tourbillon in a much smarter or, let's say, industrialized way, preserving, of course, the fact that it's very little, the production that we're doing, but it's very smart. And this is how he came with extremely interesting prices for tourbillon, which coupled with my business model where we don't multiply the cost price by 7, 10, or 20 like in the high end, but by 2 or 3. The initial price multiplied by 2 or 3 with my business model made us reach this type of 100% Swiss made tourbillon at $10,000. And this is very unique. So I wanted to somehow secure this. That's first reason. And second, come with many more beautiful things because he has already 23 movements and complication in his portfolio, but 23 pages of what he calls the rainy days carnet, where he writes his ideas. And you will see a firework of amazing movements, in-house movements, complications between 2,000 to 5,000 US dollar that you have never seen before, or maybe could exist in brands that don't sell it less than 20 or 50,000 or more.
So you're saying that he's not just going to keep doing what he's doing now, but you're investing in a whole growth of ideas.
Absolutely.
And these are not just going to be, I imagine, movements for the Baillod collection, but these, at least some of them, are going to be available to third parties.
Absolutely. Look, I'm my first employer. I work for Swiss Made, and I have to respect this. So, if I can contribute and secure great movements for the industry. We're not speaking about the entry price movements. I will never compete with ETA, Celita, Soprod, and we work a lot with Soprod. We're not speaking about this. We can never make better movements at the same price as they do. But we'll go to very high end. And of course, I am very happy to sell those movements and keep on selling tourbillon to competitors. Why wouldn't I? I'm helping other brands. This is good. Competition is great. And if I can produce not 1,000, but 10,000 movements, the cost price of a single movement would come down drastically. So I would benefit from it. And I'm happy to.
No, and there's, I think, an important market for that. I couldn't say how big it is, but there's a lot of companies out there who want to have, I don't want to call it like a complicated watch, but they want more than just stock movement. And there's difficult, I mean, yes, Celita does some stuff through AMT. You have Chronode, you have Concepto, but Dubois de Pras. There are competitors out there, but still there doesn't seem to be one leader. Of course, Le Jeu Perret you have now as well. Each of them has their own pluses and minuses, but ideally, there's such a variety of movements out there that they can all specialize in something different. And some brand could say, this idea that we want to have done, it's best if we go to Baillod. They have something closest to it. They can modify something, and you'll probably get business that way.
Of course, we do, because we can then create things that others didn't do with another layer, which is our price. And everything Olivier and I do is extremely competitive. And that can ultimately benefit the end consumers, you listening to us or watching us, because then you will be able to wear amazing complications at a price that is very democratic.
Now, I want to ask again why that's important to you. And it's not that it's not important. It's just that it's so different than a lot of your colleagues. Because as you know, a lot of the times when someone gets into bespoke movement creation, the statement of at the best possible price, they stop caring about it. For them, it's just do what the customer wants. It costs what it costs. That'll be that. You know that there's an ability to make money through those extremely high-end things. It may not be easy, it's competitive, but what is it about your personality or what you see in the market that makes it clear to you that cost effectiveness, and I'm not complaining at all, I think it's great, but why are you so sold on this?
I agree that it's something that is very unusual. Not so many people would think my way, because again, people tend to maximize profit instead of excitement or passion. What is it about my personality? When I made my Camino last week, I slept in albergue, which cost 10 or 20 US dollar. And I spent this with the people from there because I wanted to understand and have the real track or the real experience. And somehow the fact that I come from La Chaux-de-Fonds and my father was a great journalist, but when he started, he was doing medals. So he was doing things with his hand. And I respect people doing things. Now, what I somehow complain about is that these people are largely ignored and underpaid. And I think this is just not right. So, maximizing just more money because it's better, it's a concept that is not reaching me. I spent many years traveling for big brands. I spent years traveling in business class, sleeping in 5-star hotel. Everybody likes it. That's fine. But it's not just the reality for everyone. And I want to, even now, if I have my brand, if I'm the luxury, if it works very well for me, I want to hold to my promise of keeping my feet on the ground. And this is exactly what I did last week. You walk one step after the other, you're on the ground, and you know what is the effort to make 1 mile walking. And I don't know. I'm like this. I want to respect that.
So who is overpaid in the watch industry if the artisans are underpaid? Economically speaking.
Shall I make more enemies or? Look, everything is well made so that all the money you make is spent and many people benefit from it. But generally, you have a lot of people, intermediaries, that would make sure that whatever the profit you make will be shared. And there are many magazines or podcasts that have not spoken about me yet, even after 6 years, because they just don't want to voice that brand out, because they have a lot of sponsors, because they work with a lot of brands that pay them very well, and it's all organized in a way that the more you spend, if you go to the airport in Switzerland, you land and you walk in those corridors from the hub to the central of the airport, you will see these huge advertising that I can tell you cost like 20 or 10 or 20,000 US dollar per month. Imagine the budget. The customer is paying it. So, the more you spend, the more you will be visible. The more you'll be visible, the more you'll be liked, and people would be inspired by you. And the higher the prices. This is all a logic. And that's why I'm not for everyone, because I would not be for those people who will gladly see their watch worn by the best actors or on the facade of the biggest building.
The people that have those brands, they don't always have a lot to say in a podcast. So people should have you on a podcast, but a lot of those managers, who I think are the people you claim are overpaid, they have not a lot to say. I think that's what's interesting. There's people in this industry who are proud to talk about what they do. You're one of those people, and there's some people that are very cagey about it, and that's my judge. You use the word passion, which I agree, but it's like, are you willing to talk about your job? Yes, maybe I'll trust you and buy from you. No, I'm going to be suspicious. That's for me where I draw the line.
I learn now to speak for myself and live and let people live their life. You have any kind of people, any kind of strategy, and I'm not here to judge if someone is overpaid or not, if a watch is overcharged. Ultimately, there is no bad price. There is a price people are ready to spend.
You're not to judge. You want the consumer to judge, right?
Yeah. And again, I don't expect everybody to like me or my products. And thanks God, because actually, the US market put us in a big difficulty. In September, we launched the Chapter 8, the Moon Phase, which is a beautiful product. And I said, okay, let me produce like 300 or 400 pieces for the launch. It's still, good quantity for my brand. Understanding that we sell mostly here, 60-70% of our sales are made to the people working in the watch industry here in the Watch Valley. So we sell to the people here in the Watch Valley. Fortunately or unfortunately, there has been a big and very good article in a big magazine in the US. I will not name it, but thanks for them. And in 2 weeks, it cleared our stock. We're sold out. And seems to be positive. We have sold 200-300 pieces in 1 or 2 weeks in the US thanks to that article. But then we were dried for 3-4 months, which is a good problem to have, but it's a problem because then it created frustrations and people started to doubt, why you're saying that you can deliver in 2 weeks and then you have to wait 4 months. But we're not ready yet. I don't want to overthrow big quantities there because we're not done from there. I want to sell sufficient. I pay very well my employees. We have a good life here. We enjoy with 3,000 pieces. Maybe another time it's going to be 5,000. I don't want to be 500,000. It's not the kind of business I'm dreaming.
It'd be very interesting to catch up again soon. We're out of time. I recommend everyone go to the Baillod.com website. That's BA111OD.com. Thomas, thank you so much for being my guest on Superlative.
Thanks, Ariel. Thanks a lot for inviting me. And you're one of the very few from the beginning that handed me the microphone and said, I don't understand, but explain me. So thanks for that curiosity. And thanks to the people that have made it until here for being curious and listening to what we do here from the Watch Valley. Thanks a lot.